Welcome to teachmeall.com. In this video, we're going to show you how to change the front brake pads and rotors on this 2003 Ford F-150 XLT.
Now we're going to review with you the tools we use to do this job.
We have a jack, 2 jack stands, and 2 wheel chocks. We have our new front brake rotors, our new front brake pads, we went ahead and bought new bearings, some new cotter keys, some wheel bearing grease, we have a grease packer, we have some .3 brake fluid, some brake parts cleaner, high temperature caliper grease, anti-seize lubricant, have our thread lock, we have a 1 1/16 socket for the axle nut, we have a 21mm socket for the lug nuts, an 18mm socket for the caliper mounting bracket bolts, and a 13mm socket for the caliper guide pin bolts. We have a couple of different size 1/2-inch ratchets. We have a 1/2-inch drive torque wrench. We have a 3/8 wrench for the bleeder screw. We have our disc brake spreader and the large C-clamp for compressing the caliper piston. Some hose pinch pliers, a couple of different standard screwdrivers, some nail nose pliers, a rubber mallet, a brake bleeder kit, some safety glasses, a shop light, some shop towels, and a bungee cord to tie up the caliper. First we're going to set our emergency brake. We're going to put our wheel chocks behind both rear tires. Then we'll use one of our flathead screwdrivers, or standard screwdrivers, to remove the center cap. And then we're going to use our 21mm socket and ratchet to go ahead and break loose the lugs on both front tires. Go ahead and move to the other side and do the exact same thing. I'm going to jack the vehicle up. Refer to owner's manual for proper jacking positions. The tires off the ground, we're going to go ahead and put our jack stands under the vehicle. Never crawl under a vehicle that's not supported by jack stands. We'll lower the vehicle onto the jack stands. Now we're going to go ahead and remove all the lug nuts on both front wheels. If you notice, we slide our tires up under the vehicle. This is for safety and for convenience. Then we're going to remove our calipers. So we're going to go ahead and we're starting with the passenger side. So we're going to go ahead and turn the wheels. This is the location of all the bolts. So the caliper mounting bracket bolts, the caliper guide pin bolts. So then we use our hose pinch pliers. We're going to pinch the brake line. Then we're going to compress our piston so we can get the caliper off easily. So we put our wrench on. Our brake bleeder kit, we open up the bleeder screw. Use our large C-clamp to compress the piston. This helps us get it off easy. You see, you can watch some fluid come to the brake line, to the bleeder kit line. Remove the C-clamp. Tighten the bleeder screw. Remove the bleeder kit. Remove your wrench and reinstall your dust cover so you can keep up with it. Then we're going to remove the caliper guide pin bolts. Start with the top, then move to the bottom. We don't usually remove the top bolt until we remove the bottom bolt. This keeps the caliper in position a little easier. Slide the caliper off and we'll tie it up using our bungee cord. This will keep the weight off the brake line. Then we're going to go ahead and remove our pads. See, these pads are pretty worn out. Okay, they were really worn out. Then we're going to remove our caliper mounting bracket. We use a longer 1/2-inch wrench here because these bolts are a lot tighter usually. With both bolts removed, we can slide our caliper mounting bracket off and set it out of the way. Then we're going to remove our rotor. These rotors, we have to remove this cap. This has got a dust cover. We use a flathead screwdriver and our rubber mallet generally to hopefully remove that. Be careful not to damage the dust cover, as it's pretty soft material. Now we need to remove this cotter pin. We use our nail nose pliers and one of our flathead screwdrivers. With the pin out, we can go ahead and remove this cover. Using our 1 1/16 socket, we can go ahead and remove the axle nut. Now we can remove the bearings holding the rotor on. And we can slide the rotor off. Now here's our new bearings. We have the inner and the outer. These are the inner bearings. We're going to put them in here. This is how we install them. And so these are the outer ones, and they go on this side, away from the vehicle. So we have our new bearings came with these new races. Since we got new rotors, the races were already installed, so we don't need these races. We can just discard them. Now I was just showing you the new race inside the rotor. Then we're going to pack our bearings using our bearing packer. This is kind of a messy job, but it needs to be done. We can put our grease in and put our bearing in there. If you saw how the bearing was, and we press down on it with a packer. Here I'll show you again. We install that. Push down on it with both hands. It requires a lot of force to push the grease through. And now you can see this is how a bearing looks when it's packed. We'll go ahead and do all of our bearings. And then notice how we install the bearings into the bearing packer. The taper kind of goes down. Now all the bearings are packed. We're going to go ahead and start installing them into our rotors. We're going to add a little extra grease inside the rotor. We install our inner bearings. These are the larger ones. We also got new bearing seals. Using our rubber mallet, we'll go ahead and install these bearings. The seals, I mean. Gently tap into place. It should be flush when it's installed. Here we're going to go ahead and install the other one. Also notice how the seal goes into place. We're going to clean off the axle here using our brake parts cleaner and a clean rag. We'll remove any old grease. We'll go ahead and put a thin layer of grease over here. This helps it to seal. Then we're just cleaning up some of the parts that we use for holding the rotor into place. We have a washer and then an axle nut. We're just cleaning them off. Go ahead and install our outer bearing. And we install our washer. You'll notice the washer only goes on one way. There's a groove in the axle. Then we install our axle nut. Then we're going to torque these while spinning the rotor to 20 foot-pounds. Make sure you spin the rotor blade. This helps to seat the bearings properly. Then we're going to back off the spindle nut a half a turn. And you retorque it to 20 inch-pounds or 2 foot-pounds. Then we install the cover. This keeps the axle nut in position along with the cotter key. You have to make sure it's lined up properly with the hole. If not, just kind of adjust it back and forth until you can get your cotter key in. Using our nail nose pliers, we'll go ahead and bend the cotter key, get in position, and we'll go ahead and reinstall our dust cover using our rubber mallet. Again, be careful doing this. We're going to go ahead and clean our new rotor using some brake parts cleaner. This gets rid of any dirt or grease that may have gone to the rotor. Then we're getting ready to install the caliper mounting bracket. So we'll apply a little thread lock to both caliper mounting bracket bolts. We're also going to grease the guide pins here using some anti-seize lubricant. We pull the guide pins out, we'll wipe off any old grease and apply some new anti-seize lubricant to both guide pins. Make sure the guide pins seat properly up on the rubber boot. Now we're going to remove our brake hardware and inspect it. We'll also clean it if necessary. But since we have new hardware, we're just going to go ahead and discard the old and use the new. Once we match it up and make sure the new hardware is the same as the old. Install the new hardware onto the caliper mounting brackets. Slide the caliper mounting bracket into position. Reinsert our caliper mounting bracket bolts. We're going to tighten these down. Then we're going to torque them to 136 foot-pounds unless otherwise specified. We're going to apply a little anti-seize lubricant to the caliper hardware. This is where the pad slides. Just help the pad slide a little bit better. You'll notice where we put the pad in with the low wear indicator, usually on the outside. Now we're going to place some high temperature caliper grease on the back of each of the brake pads, on the inner and the outer. Getting ready to reinstall our caliper. We're going to apply a little thread lock to our caliper guide pin bolts. And you'll prepare our caliper. We need to compress the pistons, so we remove it from our bungee cord. We're going to compress the piston using our disc brake spreader. So we're going to go ahead and remove the dust cover, install the wrench, install our brake bleeder kit, open up the bleeder screw using one of the old pads and our disc brake spreader. We're going to compress the pistons to their flush inside the caliper. Since this has two pistons, we need to alternate the disc brake spreader from side to side so we can push the pistons in pretty evenly. Once we have it done, we're going to go ahead and tighten up our bleeder screw, remove our bleeder kit, remove our wrench, reinstall our dust cover. Then we're going to slide our caliper into position over the new brake pads. We need to line up our guide pins. Then we're going to install our caliper guide pin bolts. Then we're going to torque the caliper guide pins to 25 foot-pounds unless otherwise specified. Then we're going to remove our hose pinch pliers. Then we're going to move to the other side. Then we're going to turn our wheels toward the passenger side. We're moving now to the driver's side, placing our hose pinch pliers, removing our dust cover, install our wrench, install our brake bleeder kit, open up the bleeder screw. Using our large C-clamp, we're going to go ahead and compress the caliper, the piston inside the caliper. Then we remove our C-clamp. Tighten up the bleeder screw, remove the bleeder kit, remove our wrench, reinstall our dust cover. Then we're going to remove our caliper guide pin bolts. We're going to remove the caliper and tie it up using our bungee cord. Go ahead and remove our brake pads. Remove our caliper mounting bracket. There's two bolts again. We're going to start with the top and then remove the bottom one. Remove the top bolt, then we'll slide the caliper mounting bracket off. Then we're going to remove our rotor. Again, we remove this dust cover using our flathead screwdriver and our rubber mallet. Just gently work the flathead screwdriver in there, don't damage the cap. Then we're going to use our nose pliers to remove the cotter key. Remove the nut holder there and the cover, and remove the nut. Slide the rotor off and your washer and the outer bearing will come loose. Clean up the axle, or actually the spindle, using our brake parts cleaner. Apply a little grease to it to have it seal. So we already have our brake rotors prepared with our packed bearings. We're going to go ahead and slide in the new rotor into place. Then we're going to put in the outer bearing. We'll clean up the parts, just wipe them off. This is our washer. Again, this washer only goes one way. Then we have our axle nut. Here we're installing our axle nut. Just make sure you don't cross thread this. Then we're going to torque this nut to 20 foot-pounds as we rotate the rotor. Then when we get it done, we'll back it off a half a turn. Then we're going to torque it down to 20 inch-pounds. We're going to reinstall our cover. Again, we have to make sure it lines up. When we'll just turn the nut right or left, and just to get it to line up, just barely turn it, just enough for it to line up, and then we use the needle nose pliers to go ahead and bend the prongs on the cotter key to hold it into place. Then we're going to reinstall our dust cover. We're going to clean our rotor. prepare our caliper mounting bracket. We're going to fix our guide pins, remove them, wipe the old grease off, and install some new anti-seize lubricant. We're going to put some anti-seize lubricant on the guide pin. Slide it back into place. Make sure it seats properly with the rubber cover. Remove the other one, clean it off, and install the anti-seize lubricant back into place. Then we're going to remove the old hardware, and if you don't have new hardware, just inspect your old hardware and clean it with some brake parts cleaner. But since we went ahead and got new hardware and it's this exact match, we're going to go ahead and install the new hardware into the caliper mounting bracket. Slide the caliper mounting bracket into place. Install our caliper mounting bracket bolts. Again, we torque these to 136 foot-pounds unless otherwise specified. We'll apply a little anti-seize lubricant to the brake hardware. This is where the pads slide, as we mentioned before. We're going to install our pads. Notice the low wear indicator we usually install on the outside pad. Then we install the inner pad. We're going to apply a little high temp caliper grease to the back of both pads. Go ahead and prepare our caliper. Remove the caliper from the bungee cord. Going to remove our dust cover. Install our wrench. Install our bleeder kit. Open up the bleeder screw. Using one of the old brake pads and our disc brake spreader, we're going to go ahead and compress the pistons inside the caliper. Make sure the pistons are flush, and again we alternate from side to side. Once the pistons are compressed, we remove the disc brake spreader, remove the pad, tighten up our bleeder screw, remove our bleeder kit, remove our wrench, reinstall our dust cover, slide the caliper into position of the new brake pads and new rotor, line up the guide pins. We're going to apply some thread lock to our caliper guide pin bolts, put the bolts into position. We're going to tighten up the bolts. Then we're going to torque them to 25 foot-pounds unless otherwise specified. We're going to remove our hose pinch pliers. Get ready to bleed our brakes. So we're going to open the hood and check our brake fluid. Make sure the brake fluid is full. And then we're going to start with the passenger side. So we're going to turn our wheels toward the driver's side. Remove our dust cover. Install our wrench. Install our bleeder kit. You always start with the side farthest from the master cylinder, as in this case it is the passenger side, and in most cases. Then we're going to have your partner press and hold down the brake pedal. Make sure the bleeder screw is closed when the brake pedal is pressed. Then you open the bleeder screw, and you close it. Then you let your partner release the brake pedal. Now tighten up the bleeder screw. Then press the brake pedal again, open the bleeder screw, and allow fluid to come to the lines. Never release the brake pedal when the bleeder screw is open, as you can introduce air into your brake system. Once you have no more air bubbles coming through the brake line, you can finish that side and move to the other side. Then we're going to remove our bleeder kit, remove our wrench. Make sure your bleeder screw's tight now. Reinstall our dust cover. We're going to check the brake fluid and add to the full or maximum line. We're going to turn our wheels toward the passenger side. Move our dust cover, install our wrench, install our bleeder kit. Have your partner depress the brake pedal and hold it down. Open up the bleeder screw, allow the fluid to come through, close it, release the brake pedal. Now we only did this one time here, but usually it takes you around 3 times to get this bled properly. Remove your bleeder kit, remove your wrench, reinstall your dust cover, go back under the hood and make sure you add brake fluid. As I said, make sure it goes to the full or maximum line. I'll make sure you reinstall your master cylinder cap. We're going to straighten up the wheels, reinstall our tires. We're going to use our wrench to go ahead and snug down the lug nuts as best as possible. Move to the other side, do the exact same thing. Now we're going to lower the vehicle back onto the ground. So first we position our jack, raise the vehicle up, so we can remove our jack stands. Move both jack stands, lower the vehicle onto the ground. And we're going to torque the lug nuts to 150 foot-pounds unless otherwise specified, and do this in a crisscross pattern. We reinstall our center cap, move to the other side and do the exact same thing. Reinstall our center cap. Remove our wheel chocks.
We hope this video will help you change the front brake pads and rotors on your 2003 Ford F-150 XLT.
Send any comments you may have to comments@teachmeall.com. And as always, thank you for visiting teachmeall.com and have a great day.